Wonderful. It's really good to be back with another episode of the AI Africa Report. I promised that we'd have an episode every week. You know, it's almost like living in the time of Voldemort and Harry Potter. And for anyone who's a Harry Potter fan, you would know that when Voldemort finally came back into power and he was on the loose, the people who were fighting against him, like we are fighting against the coronavirus, could only do a show every now and then. And that seems to be what is happening to us. But fear no more. We are back in full swing. We have a wonderful guest today. As you know, the AI Africa Report is a flagship project from Socially Acceptable, which is a not-for-profit company and an organization that's committed to democratizing digital citizenry, as well as having a focus on AI ethics, which is our particular focus here. And I know that in every episode we talk about that. So I want to introduce today's guest before I bring her into studio. Natalie Raphil is a leading AI innovator in Africa. And I was happy to have joined a few webinars where I saw her speak as a guest. She's also the leader of the educational stream for women in AI South Africa, and that's how I got to know about her. But Natalie is a very interesting person. As the founder of Robots Can Think, it's a company that specializes in creating artificial intelligence capable of controlling robots. And recently, they were in the news for also doing their part to assist with medical equipment for the coronavirus pandemic. Natalie, welcome to the AI Africa Report.
Thank you, Naz. It's wonderful to be here. It's
so lovely to have you. And amidst, if it's not the coronavirus and the lockdowns, it's also HCOM. So thanks very much for joining us, despite having challenges your side. I know there was massive outage on your side, thunderstorms to add to it, but here we are.
Technology does save us.
Which is, I suppose, what we are talking about today. Now, yes. In introducing you and what it is that you do, I think a good place to start always, and we've had a few women who've been interviewed on the AI Africa Report more, but our job is to do more of it. We've had many more men than we've had women. So I'm so pleased to welcome you, because you're helping to improve our rating here on getting more representation, especially in the AI space on the African continent. Tell us about Robots Can Think and how did that start? What inspired it?
I think just that, I've been in the industry, IT industry for over 16 years, and it is dominated by our male counterparts. And yes, we're not saying we want to overshadow and overtake. All we're saying is we want to equal placing. And I think that's where it started. It's predominantly focused on levitating and gravitating females within the industry, within Africa and South Africa, to sit at the tables and provide extremely wonderful and futuristic innovations and inventions for Africans by Africans. And we help organizations throughout the country plan for a future that they can really barely comprehend today. We all know technology is moving so fast. Many think it's here to take over our jobs and our place in society. And others just think it's extremely expensive to incorporate in an organization or business. And we're here to say, well, we can do it simply in a cost-effective manner, using skills within South Africa, servicing the rest of Africa, and eventually the rest of the world. So we really produce bespoke inventions that assist us from an education perspective, for those that are in rural areas, just uplifting them and making sure that the data circulating within our realms also is inclusive of everybody, black,
Yeah.
white, male, female, the divides of poverty against those that just have affluence and money. So it's really bridging those divides.
Yeah. You remind me, or you are also alluding to a point that's main topic of conversation right now, which is online schooling in South Africa. And that's exactly what you're talking to, is the democracy of access to connectivity aside from the actual tech itself. So
yeah,
what we're doing, or what we're hoping to do, is having the conversations hopefully unlocks the decision making that should be happening in the wider space of those who can enable the infrastructure and the technology. So thank you
yeah.
for making that point. Natalie,
Thank you.
in doing the work with Robots Can Think, how big do you think the robotics space is in South Africa, and the interest and appetite for it compared to Europe and US, where companies like Boston Dynamics and others have maybe the money and the resources to go full scale and have robot dogs? What do you think is the appetite here? Why is it important, particularly here?
So there is appetite, and whether we have the infrastructure or the money supporting it is a different question. But the appetite is there. That there's an appetite to learn, and there's appetite to provide learning. If you look at it very simplistically, and the same can be said for sanitization, water, and food, and so forth. But the funding and the means to roll it out to the rest of the country, the rest of Africa, is where we find the issues lie. And Elon Musk did the same thing. He had wonderful ideas here. He could not propel it here, so he had to move overseas to get and do what he does. And I think if we could focus a little bit more on implementing our great ideas and supporting those from a financial perspective who have minimal viable products that's sustainable and is going to, and is helping the community at large, then by all means, I would like to challenge corporates out there to get behind it and support it.
You make a very fair comment, because it makes me think about the type of investment that happens on this continent versus going to a more developed environment, where the ability to secure that funding, even with a concept idea, is so great, is so large, that it can be done. You can start working on a conceptual idea. But here it seems to be the other way around. Darlington Akogo, who we talked to in one of our previous episodes, also gave the same comment. He's based in Ghana and running an AI healthcare service, and has reported the same that you. So this is a common experience across the continent. I think I know we have a lot to talk about, other aspects that we need to talk about, which will then flow into the AI ethics side. But before we do, and to wrap up that particular note, do you think that this somehow reluctance to invest in local, the type of investment we're looking for to get the kind of results that we want, reluctance to invest, is the same type of thinking that's going into the ability for us to also generate the right type of research that will put us at the forefront, like the research coming out of the EU, the UK, and the US, and Asia?
Yeah, I think I can agree with that. Yes. We do need the researchers. We do need the. Yes, it's the right question to ask, and you're asking some tough ones, which I enjoy. I do believe we need the support and funding for researchers, because we are unique. Our Africanism, our makeup is unique. What we go through here as Africa and South Africans differs largely to the rest of the world.
Yeah.
If you look at just the medics of our makeup, creatine in our kidneys as Black humans is just vastly different to those of our white brothers and sisters. But if you look at the oximeter that's measuring our oxygen levels, they predominantly derived, because of past and where it started, derived by white mechanisms for counting the oxygen levels in one's body. But ours, as Black humans on this planet, it differs vastly. Yet, with research in Africa for Africans, we could, share with the rest of the world, share our learnings with the rest of the world. And it goes back to the first heart surgery. It goes back to tons of our medical research that was really completed here in South Africa and adopted eventually by the rest of the world.
Yeah. I don't want to go on. I know you were making a last point, Natalie. Go on.
Oh, no, I think with the funding on innovation and invention, it's basically just the same sentiment. Let's invest in our people. Let's grow with investing in our people and entrepreneurship and invention here in Africa for Africans. There's nothing stopping us from exporting that talent. There's nothing stopping us from exporting our people to the rest of the world, because we do have a vast, niche, succinct, capable lot of people in Africa that can supplement the rest of the world from an IT, technology, AI perspective.
Absolutely. Conversation we must have at length in another episode. But I don't want to take away also from the fact that we opened up the interview talking about robots can think. And you've been in the news recently for doing some fantastic work with the 3D printing of masks. Are we correct?
Yeah, so yes, we were the first to offer 3D printed PPE masks and gear to private and public hospitals. And this was earlier March last year. And we kind of set the tone for PPE and 3D printing PPE masks for the rest of South Africa and Africa. And I think that's not where it stopped. I've seen phenomenal inventors and innovators do wonderful things in the space as well.
Natalie, before we continue speaking about our other areas of interest, we thank you so much for your contribution to our public health sector. And we hope that other organizations are inspired by what you're doing, which they are. But thank you for all the good work that you guys are doing so far at Robots Can Think. We will talk more about what you're doing in another episode. But I think I asked this of someone else in another episode who built a WhatsApp system for contact tracing with coronavirus. I asked him, and I'm going to ask you, what should citizens understand about healthcare and tech to make their lives better?
That it's available. They should understand that tech for healthcare is available. We need to now educate our citizens on where they can acquire this tech.
Yeah.
Things like your online triage, things like booking your essential services, having your X-rays predetermined for you via AI and so forth. It is available. I would love the rest of the community and our citizens out there to just read up on it and just become aware of what is out there. I think you're on mute, or I can't hear you.
The story of my that I'm on mute is very important. Do you think naturally there's a number of factors that contribute to the uptake or a complete
and there was light.
Brilliant. Well done. Okay,
yes.
This means our interview is going well. There's a sign. So, Do you think the uptake or no take of tech available? There's not a lot of factors, right? Device capability, connectivity. I feel like trust is a massive factor of that. The trust factor.
I would say cost as well.
Trust and cost.
So cost, yeah. If you look at it, the acquisition of data is probably the highest in the world here in South Africa.
Yeah.
If you compare it with our UK community, we are the most expensive. So I think it's really, yes, I can give you the most fundamental and wonderful applications out there. I can give you a smart device, but if I don't give you data, you're never going to access it.
Yeah.
So I think, and there's incredible, intelligent people out there, and I think they can solve the problem of data acquisition. And perhaps if we make data more available, more readily available, the uptake of these apps and the education of AI within Africa will increase.
I feel like I wish there was some kind of wand we could wave to remove the blockages we're having, whether there are delays in spectrum allocation, the sale of it, as we are experiencing here in the country, the laying of fiber lines in certain areas, towers being built, and 5G supposedly causing coronavirus. It could be any number of factors. So I really wish we could wave a wand at that. But far from waving a wand and understanding everything else that we're doing, Natalie, you're involved with Women in South Africa, the South African chapter, Women in AI, the South African chapter. Tell us more about that involvement and what it's meant to achieve.
Women in AI for South Africa is really a chapter that looks for the development of females within South Africa. It's creating an environment to mentor us as females, to garner knowledge, to share knowledge, to upskill, to network females with others within the industry, and to really create an ecosystem of support and employment for women in AI here in South Africa. It talks to my passion, a passion for her development, right from grade R right up into university, and then obviously the uptake into either the entrepreneurship realm or the employment world.
So I'm wondering now about when we talk about moving into entrepreneurship, and we talk about how development itself, because when you think about AI, and I'm thinking about the AI ethics component, and I want to introduce it properly, but I'm failing badly, so I'm just going to ask the question: is if you've got how do I say this, Natalie? If you've got an organization like this that's so invested in what we're doing, who are the main key players that you want to see within this space here in South Africa, leading a conversation on AI ethics? Is it a developer? Is it a business owner? Is it a client who's commissioning a piece of software? Where does that conversation start?
I think it starts with every individual, irrespective of your title. Yeah. You should be knowledgeable enough to bring about inclusiveness with what you build in AI. So I'm going to remove any title. As a human being, and if you are in AI in any shape or form, your first notion should be ethical AI. Are the inputs and are the outputs that I'm generating from any AI developed tool or application, is it going to be ethical and moral for our society? Is it going to be inclusive? Is it going to be fair?
Yeah.
Is it going to lack any sort of, or is it going to create an equal playing ground for us? because AI ethics and the ethical side of any application could include me or it could exclude me.
Yeah.
And I think the notion sits with everybody, irrespective of your title. You should come into it saying, I am going to be ethical about what I do.
What is that happening? Not what, but is that happening enough? Is it common practice?
I think we have this unconsciousness towards it.
Yeah.
We're not conscious that the things we put out could affect others.
Yeah.
Like the oximeter I spoke about. I don't think they went into it wanting to exclude the black counters, right?
Yeah.
I don't think so I think it's really the awareness. I don't think it's happening enough right now, the awareness side of things. So I would like to see, a lot of education coming to the fore regarding just pure, what is ethics? What is morals? What is inclusivity? What does it mean for me as a human? If I exclude you, what does it mean?
But this is
However, we do live in a society where I can make money from excluding you.
Yes.
And because we're driven by money and power, I think we have a really tall hill to climb. And we can only curb that hill if we all hold each other accountable.
It makes me so happy to hear you saying that. I'm mindful again of the society that we live in, because asking questions is a good way to remove misconception, doubt, or misunderstanding. Asking questions.
Yeah.
But I feel that as much as we've been given platforms to have free voice, to be the authors of any story that we wanted, which is so readily available to anyone, it's also in some way increased the ability to be offended that much more easily. Somehow human behavior changed somewhere along the line. So we're fighting almost, I feel, like a double-edged sword of trying to ask a question and not offending everyone. There's those memes that go around about having to offend everyone and trying to apologize to everyone and still failing at it. So it's an interesting space to be in. Nevertheless, I absolutely agree with you that this education around AI ethics needs to happen, and it needs to start now. We need to be have more awareness or a deeper understanding of it. But then the question will be, where will it begin? Is it with general publics who are using mobile devices and have access to the internet, or will it start with the people actually creating these products for consumption?
I think it's going to be inclusivity. One, if you look at the table of IT or the boardroom table of IT back in the day, it was a demographic. And we're slowly channeling it for change. And now because we have a universal demographic around an IT boardroom table, it means we are bringing that inclusivity into our mindsets from the onset. But if we are not willing to make those changes, as small as inclusivity is, we should be aware of what the outcomes are going to be. You should have a diverse team. So if you're an organization building AI, you should insist on a diverse team. Mm-hmm. If you are testing an application to just make it real to the organizations out there and people out there, you should have a diverse testing object or a test pad to say, Naz, Natalie, and whoever else is going to test this from their ethical perspectives. Because your ethics and my ethics, they differ. Yes, we have the overall morals of ethics, but it differs, right?
Yeah.
And to have the general seat around the table, just looking at things from different avenues, different aspects, is what's going to change it. And I have to stress that we have to get our IT boardroom tables to be inclusive. Not just adding a female face because I'm female, but adding a female face with the idea that, hey, I am going to have an ethically inclusive end result.
Yeah.
That's the mindset shift that's needed.
It's it makes me think of that example of, I can't remember the term that they use for that example, but the one about if a car had to hit an old person versus a child or a group of people. I can't remember what the example is called. But based on that, which would you prefer? Right? Would it be the old person who may have a shorter lifespan, or a child because, well, it's
They
only
have their full life to live, yeah?
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean,
Makes me think of those things. But this diversity we're talking about, it would make me then ask, what type of diversity engagement should teams who are building these types of software try to engage? You're coming from a development background. You're coming from the background of understanding what corporate engagement can look like, as well as having civil society understanding of producing a solution that works for people. So where in that process should the diversity training, and what type should it be?
So I think the diversity should be around different social standings of people, different ethnic groups, different racial groups, and just a diverse mindset in somebody. You can easily pick up diversity from a conversation in an interview with somebody. And then it's the diversity of international relationships. Yes, we have social media and Facebook and everyone likes everything, but let's engage with them. Hey, I'm building this WhatsApp thing for a hospital. What do you think about it? Can I show it to you?
Yeah.
So there's nothing stopping us right now, but it's really how far do we want to challenge ourselves? So if I come back to answering your questions, I would say it's just a diverse, socially inclusive mindset of people, as well as extending it to our international counterparts. So you get diversity and inclusiveness in what you need to build. But it is a mindset shift.
It's a mindset shift that I hope will filter into the kind of data we produce, which is then informing all the data sets, training all these models and systems.
And to be honest, it's not going to happen overnight. We have decades and centuries of undoing to kind of complete, right?
Natalie, do you think we're in this moment where we understand AI as an enabling technology? It's doing fantastic things. We're starting to talk about the ethics around it. Internationally, toolkits and guidelines have been produced in the last year alone to show how seriously the subject has been taken. But I feel we're in that point where we're in the undoing phase, and the real change will only probably be seen in the next 100 years.
Perhaps I need to challenge what I just spewed out. Do we have to undo anything? Surely we can just start. Surely we can just start afresh and say we are going to be inclusive and ethical about whatever we produce going forward, with the knowledge of history, that history was not inclusive. It was really a part of division. And perhaps we need to just say, yeah, it was part of division. Let's just do it differently and not undo the lens of history and really create the history.
I like what you're saying, and I also wish it was as easy as we're thinking it could be, because when I think about, and I always come back to this main persona, which is the developer, to say they're operating on logic, a brief, and their own worldview of things. logic as in computer logic. What if and then something must happen. So
yeah.
I don't know if this might be the correct thing to say, and I know we're not nearly, we are at the end of our interview, unfortunately, because it's such an incredible conversation to have with you. But
yeah.
shouldn't that diversity training begin with developers?
I don't think it should only begin with developers. Developers are probably the second last in the chain of developing a solution. The beginning of the chain is really someone who requires the product, then someone who analyzes it and drafts out and elicits requirements. And if those people are diversely or well, they just really do not know anything about diversity and inclusion, then your developer is just going to develop what the requirement is, right?
Yeah.
So it needs to be that link in the chain from beginning to end, that, hey, I am very intentional about being inclusive and diverse in the product that you, Mr. Developer or Miss Developer, will be producing for me.
I'm so
But
glad
if my requirement to you was develop a WhatsApp tool and exclude anyone from Durban, that's what a developer is going to build.
Absolutely. The segmentation, right, for him.
Yeah.
I'm so glad you brought that point up, because yes, I am in agreement. Developers actually will just enable the brief that's given to them mostly and apply the best solution to get it done in as quick time as possible with the best tools. But it's that entire chain to look at. And this is a question I want to explore more with all our counterparts in the industry, is to asking the right questions about not who is totally responsible, but how responsible should they be, and are they being that responsible anyway? So I'm glad that we ended on that note. Natalie, final thoughts and words for our viewers before we let you go on.
Please continue thriving in innovation and entrepreneurship, especially with AI. Please be inclusive and intentional about AI ethics and the awareness of it in everything that you produce from an AI perspective.
Fantastic. Dr. Natalie Raphil, thank you very much for joining us from Robots Can Think, as well as the chapter leader in South Africa for Women in AI South Africa. It was such a pleasure to talk to you.
Thank you for your time and for your hospitality.
Wonderful. That was Natalie Raphil from Robots Can Think. I always do these episodes of AI Africa Report, and I enjoy them very much so. We have some fantastic guests, but I really enjoyed today's interview. It was a conversation more than anything else. So thanks very much, Natalie, and we'll see her on future episodes coming up. I am sure of that. So as you know, on the AI Africa Report, we always aim to find thought leaders, thinkers, and doers who are involved in the AI space on the African continent, because we need to tell our story of how it operates here on this continent, in addition to what our counterparts are doing internationally. Next week, finally, we will be speaking to Yashmita Bana, CEO at Nika Technology Group. I have been saying that since last year, but life also happens, and so we must reschedule things. But definitely we will be speaking with her next week. I'm very excited about that, and I hope that you will be joining us next week, as you always do. For the AI Africa Report, I am Nazreen Ibrahim.